So in this video, we're going to talk about how to create cross contour lines to shade in and create the form of your object. So in this image to the right, you can see that there's some of these areas of shadow actually shaded in using line. So instead of shading in and blending things, we're still going to focus on just line and really look at the form and the direction that your lines are going to really emphasize the form in your drawings. So I'm going to play this video on the left of the steps as I walk through shading in using these contour lines. So I'm just starting in the bottom here where the darkest shadow is. So you can see the bottom of the apple is the darkest. And instead of making my lines go directly straight up and down, you'll notice that I'm curving them at an angle. And this is important so that you can really emphasize again the form and the shape that you're drawing. So by having these somewhat curved and coming out towards the right, I'm following that contour still of the apple. So if I was to outline and draw directly on top of this apple, you would see that the form follows this curve or the same shape and direction as the outside. So it's not directly straight up and down. So try to really look at the form and the direction that everything goes on the outside here. So I'm just, again, filling in these areas of shadow, stopping where the highlights are because I want to make sure my highlights are white or the lightest spots. So having really light areas and really dark areas is what's going to create that dimension and form in your drawings. So again, I'm just outlining still in the shadows on the right here. And they are curving slightly and they're not completely straight. And that's something really important to focus on, is try to look at which direction or angle you should be drawing your lines. So you can see on this image on the right, that's the finished one that I'm working on in the video. These lines are slightly curved and they're following that form of the apple here. And then up at the top, I am looking at how these lines come out. Again, not completely vertical, but I'm coming out towards the outside of the apple, trying to stay consistent with that form to help create dimension. And then I'm also just taking a few small lines to emphasize the darkest area. So at the very bottom of the apple, I'm just going through and making more lines to kind of fill in those spaces in between what I was doing before. So I would go in and look for the darkest areas and see if you can just do a few little lines to darken those up slightly, just to emphasize the shape here of the apple. And then I'm coming across what I already did, and I'm not completely going all the way across the apple, and you can see in the finished piece how they somewhat stop here. They don't all stop at the same point, so I'm making some slightly longer, some a little bit shorter to vary the value change there. And again, they're not straight lines, but they're following that curve of the apple. So if I was to go all the way across the apple, it comes down towards the middle and then back up. So right now I'm just kind of bringing these down, coming towards the middle shape here. And then same thing with the shadows on the left. I'm just going across those lines again to create the cross contour value change in the apple. And I'm making sure to leave those highlights completely white so that they really stand out and emphasize the form. And you'll notice still that they're not all the exact same length. I'm trying to make some a little bit longer, some a little bit shorter, just to blend it a little bit better so it has a more smooth transition. And then towards the bottom of the apple, again, you'll see how my Sharpie is slightly dipping down and then comes back up to show the form of the apple where it dips down and back up. All right, so the next step here is the medium values. So I'm still leaving my highlights completely white, but on the areas that I did not outline a shadow, so the main part of the apple that's that medium color and value, I'm spacing out my lines. So I'm still doing those cross contour, but I'm making them wider so that it's not going to be as dark. So you can see on my finished drawing here how these lines are slightly spaced out and not completely dark as I'm coloring them in. And then I'm going in right along this edge where it's that medium value and just drawing a few lines. The lines, again, are not completely straight, but just slightly curved to emphasize the form. All right, and then I have all of my lines filled in that are showing highlights and shadows. So the last step, and this one's optional, but if you want to create a shadow that your object's sitting on, you can outline some sort of circle around the bottom there and fill that in with some lines as well to emphasize just that placement of your object or add a little bit more to your drawing. But again, this is optional having a shadow here, especially if you can't really see a shadow in the picture. And I'm just crossing over at an angle to add a little more depth to the shadow. So the main points as you're working on yours is to create the darkest areas of shadow following the form. So don't draw straight lines, but look at the direction and the shape of your object that you're drawing. If you're stuck and you don't know which direction you should be drawing your lines, let me know and I will help you out.